That's right. It's that time of week that I know at least Travis looks forward to get his groove on there to dance his butt off to the theme, the champion song for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Welcome into this week's edition of the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game of the Jaguar Report, and to my screen right, stage right, whatever. Travis Holmes of Big Cat Country coming in, handling business. And let me be among the first to wish you a happy Halloween, sir.
Oh, thank you. It is my favorite holiday.
I did not know that, and that explains why.
It is.
You must be dressed up as a DB, which isn't much of a costume. You are a defensive back, sir.
Hey, well, I mean, these days not really, but yes. In a past life, yes, I'm gonna dress up like an old defensive back with an old bus. I don't know who was an old DB, old Ronnie Lott jersey or something. Yeah, it should be good.
Why you got to throw? Listen. You've never cut your pinky off, sir. Anyways, enough about that. We don't need to talk about old 49ers. We'll have the 49ers to talk about soon enough in upcoming weeks. But this week's edition, I feel like it's more of a travel show, Travis. Getting things going right. What is it? 4 wins, 3 time zones, 19 days, and actually one finally in Evergreen Stadium, much to the joy of the Duval devout, such that they are a lot of movement in the Jags. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty impressed by the performance. Did I predict they would go 2-0 in London? Yes. No, I'm not taking shots at you, Travis. I'm talking about how awesome I was on the Student of the Game podcast when I did it as a preview. Bing! But and no, that wasn't a backhand at you. I promise. This is all about me. Stop being so selfish. But the punchline,
it's okay.
No, but listen, the joking aside, you got to dig that stretch. Thursday night games are challenging. Trevor Lawrence with an injured knee handling business. Darius Williams, his whole health situation, Tyson Campbell, rather, his health compromised for the game in New Orleans. So too with Walker Little. A lot of challenges, and yet nonetheless, with a little help from Foster Moreau, the Jacksonville Jaguars pulled off the dub in NOLA. Overall, let's go this way first, just to kind of get it out of the way. Travis, I feel like the offense sort of disappeared in the back half of that game. What do you feel like it was attributed to?
Well, yeah, the offense disappeared. And a lot of it, I will give the Saints credit. Like, I will give the Saints some credit because the other team gets paid too. The other DC gets paid too. But a part of it was the fact that they just were missing Zay Jones. And when the Saints pivoted, so let's just start here. In the first half, Calvin Ridley got 0 targets. And everyone that I'm talking to, everybody was kind of in their feelings about it. The fans were riled, going a little crazy because the game started off 14-3 at one point. Everyone's kind of thinking this is going to be a blowout. Everyone's drinking. Everyone's having a good time. And then it started getting tight. A lot of fans started getting that lemon booty. It started being a little bit, this ain't comfortable like I thought it was going to be when it's 14-3. But honestly, everyone started saying, hey, they're doubling Calvin Ridley, they're bracketing on the outside, they're rolling coverage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now that we've gotten a few days after the game and everyone's kind of rewatched that tape, that wasn't exactly what happened. There was some double coverage opportunities, but what it really came down to was in that first half, Trevor Lawrence was going through his progressions really quickly, and basically the Saints coverage dictated that he target the slots. And a lot of the time that ended up being not Calvin Ridley. For whatever reason, they just didn't want to move him to the slots frequently. So there are only 4, by my count. I've talked to a few other people. Some other people say 5, depending on how you want to look at it. Occasions where the Saints actually doubled Calvin Ridley in this game. Right. So again, the numbers and the video didn't really match up to what everyone was saying. But what they did do is they always did it on a 3rd down situation. So it was the money downs that mattered. And so and the Jaguars kind of had no answer until you started getting later into the game. And that's some on Press Taylor, that's some on Trevor Lawrence himself. But the Jaguars' philosophy is, frankly, based on this game, is they're going to run their playbook irregardless of who's out there. And Press Taylor sort of confirmed that in Thursday's his presser. The media finally had a chance to just talk to him, and he essentially stated, "Hey, we're going to run the offense as it is we want Trevor to go through his progressions as they are and have him throw the ball to whoever the defense dictates he throw it to. Unfortunately, sometimes that means you're throwing the ball to Jamal Agnew 6 times,
right?
Even against Marcus Lattimore, like that might be a problem. So maybe we can find a way to edit this offense to take into account the fact that you don't have Zay Jones and you instead have Agnew, who is just not Zay Jones.
Which credit to the Saints for putting Lattimore on Agnew in the first place. Because if it's me and in my limited defensive mind, I'm like, why am I not? Listen, Marcus, follow that dude. I don't care where Ridley lines up. That's your guy. Right? Now, granted, I don't know if that necessarily fits the Saints scheme, but from a skill standpoint, you have to feel like that's the matchup. No, but yet nonetheless, hey, go find him. Find the bailout on the money down. 2 for 11 were the Jags on third down. So let's get to your point, to our point, I should say, leading into this football game, Travis, I made the joke myself about still getting used to the Saints as a defensive team. We acknowledge that they have a good defense. Right. The national media certainly gave that defense a lot more props than they have the Jags defense. Not wisely, but nonetheless, it's what's happened, and that's not throwing any shade at the Saints defense. I thought they were awesome. I've made the conversation myself. I think about how similar these two teams were, and that the only difference was the prowess of the quarterback. You see Trevor Lawrence coming up with a bum knee, leading the team in rushing yards, no less. Speaking of lemon booty, how'd you feel about seeing that there, Travis?
I mean, it made me start to question, like, hey, man, is this dude just a dog? It was Doug. Were they over exaggerating the severity of this injury? Like, what don't I know? Or like, I don't know. I didn't know what to think of that, honestly, because I mean, he did what he was supposed to do, and that was my biggest concern originally. And seeing how quickly he was throwing the ball, you had to assume that this was something that they hammered home. When they hammered into his head all week, hey, don't take any unnecessary hits. But then he's out there running this thing. I don't even know how many carries it was. But again, if you're over 60 yards rushing, that's a good game. That's a solid game. For a bad running back, that's a really good game for a quarterback.
Yeah, 8 carries for 59 was Trevor with a big run too, a 26-yarder. And at no point do you feel like he was necessarily welcoming contact. He continued to be safe running with the football throughout the game, just like we've come to know and love lately here in this 2023 season. But I'll add this bit of pepper on it too. I with what interactions I've had with Trevor, he has that capability to lock in and get robotic until it's time to celebrate. And even in the bad moments, he starts entering the short memory protocol. And granted, I can't write a biography on this dude. I'm not claiming I go down to the Waffle House when him after the wins or anything like that. But just from observing him, finding that robotic spot of the focus is here. This is what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, that hurts a little bit, but here we go. Just go into the protocol of protecting myself. Like it's I don't want to say it's mechanical, but there's certainly a programming in his mind that I think he enters when he's in that focus. And there's lots of guys, it's Peyton Manning-esque. There are guys that kind of do it off the seat of their pants that are gunslinger types, your Josh Allens, your Jay Cutlers, those kinds of your Brett Favre. Right. There are more robotic dudes who like Peyton Manning, Trevor.
No, I agree. There are good versions like Peyton Manning, like on occasion a Josh Allen, and then there are bad versions like Jay Cutler, like the same guys who are super robotic and they don't do it the right way, or they don't end up resulting in a good leader as far as that piece of it. And Trevor seems to do it the right way.
I can argue that's an Aaron Charles Rodgers in his later package.
Yeah. There you go.
I've made the comp to a young Aaron Charles Rodgers with Trevor Lawrence there. So, take that for what you will. But enough. I think those generally handle the bad. I get the Calvin. Looking at the numbers, the Calvin Ridley criticism is a head turner. But when you realize it's kind of fitting with the scheme, and again, who had Lattimore being put on Agnew on their bingo card? Because I sure as hell didn't, and I think that's the part that's not getting enough conversation in the Saints credit. I wonder how many Saints fans their feelings that Lattimore spent his whole time on an offensive specialist that's also the returner rather than their main guy. Why is the Lattimore covering Christian Kirk when he scores? Which is a great segue to this play that you called out on offense.
Oh,
Now,
man.
as we pull this up, I want the record to show that Christian Kirk himself said on this play he ran faster than he has. He felt like he never run faster than this play during the game. And I'm paraphrasing, but to hear that, it's a hell of a statement. But let's go into the touchdown here. This is the one that would eventually be the winning score. Thank you, sir, again, Mr. Moreau, for dropping the easy catch in the end zone. But let's get into it here late in the game here. Now, I liked how Trevor just found the check down. That was really easy. But a lot of this is good downfield blocking, and a lot of this is just get off from there. That last block right there at the end, which, again, I guess Jamal Agnew's ears are on fire. I'm pretty sure that was him. I have trouble seeing if it's 39 or not.
Yep, that was Agnew.
I mean, listen, that's the advantage to having a special teams guy down the field. He knows the importance of that downfield block, right? That's a beautiful thing there, too. Travis, what did you see that you thought was most awesome? I mean, obviously that block was. But
I thought the most awesome thing about this was actually the fact that this isn't the first time the Jaguars have run this play. They also ran it and unsuccessfully ran it earlier in the season, and I believe it was against Buffalo on a third down. And Nate Tice actually put this on the socials. I believe it was late Sunday night, if not early Monday morning, and kind of discussed it. And I was just like, yo, I didn't even notice that. Basically, Trevor ended up going for one of the deeper reads mistakenly instead of hitting that same jerk route by Kirk. And I think that came back up in film review. Right. But it came back up in film review later in the week. And obviously they came right back to it and said, hey, you're going to play another team that's going to play you with a lot of bracket coverage or a lot of cover 2 man. If you get this read, do this with the ball. He did it. It worked. And shout out also to Evan Ingram for clearing out the linebacker, 10 plus yards downfield. That gave Christian Kirk that lane. Everyone seemed to just do what they're supposed to do. Offensive line, Trevor Lawrence, all the receivers running with proper depth. It was beautiful to watch. And it's one of those few, situations where you can say, all right, cool. These other guys around Kirk basically pulled the coverage where it needed to be for that play to work is in the perfect way. That's the defense you want to see ran against that play when you call it in the huddle.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't front on that too. I feel like this is a very a Peterson-esque play in general. There were hints of this in plays that were run last year. I think there's a particular play against the Chargers, for example, when they were favored or rather such dogs in that game despite the Chargers injuries last year. I don't mean the playoff game, by the way. I mean the regular season one, just so we're clear.
Right.
And I feel like plays were that seeing plays like this was what first really got me buying into your whole Doug winning with pencil whipping concept.
Yeah.
And so obviously to see something like this, but if you're a defense, how exactly do you fend against it other than catching Kirk running across the field sooner? Because once that route started and the defender was late, Kirk had that first guy. And at the end of the day, downfield blocking, if you get submitted by that, there's not a whole lot you can do after that other than maybe hope to beat the blocks downfield. But good luck having a DB break a block. That's not what they're trained to do.
But that circles back to a lot of the things that we had already talked about when fans were arguing that Press Taylor should give up play calling and rah and pitchforks and fire, and we were just like, hey man, no, this is execution on the players. We can now see on multiple weeks we've seen where they ran this play earlier in the season and the Jaguars did this against the same defense. The Jaguars did this, or they dropped the ball, or they didn't do this, and we're just like, hey, then players aren't executing. And now we're seeing some of the same plays be ran and now are actually being executed. And instead of it being a third down drop or a third down, or a fourth down turnover on downs, we're getting, 50-yard touchdowns. Literally this exact same play, but it's just being executed and everything's being done on time.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I'll add this too. It's a little fascinating that while the Jags managed 100 yards rushing overall, the running backs themselves mostly contained. Again, Trevor Lawrence doing his job when the play breaks down to get a few extra yards here or there, or even extend long runs to set up scoring opportunities such as they were too. So certainly interesting. I don't feel like the Jags defense knew what to do with Taysom Hill. Go ahead and make your point, and then we'll move to that.
Well, no. It's just this is something that we brought up a few weeks ago about Trevor's running ability and how at one point or another it sounded like it was something that must have been mentioned by the coaching staff.
Yeah.
And now that he was actively looking for those opportunities, 1, 2, 3 reads not there, I'm taking off. And he's been doing that now for the last 3 weeks. That it's like, okay, so this is that new Josh Allen-esque, Buffalo Bills Josh Allen-esque kind of thing, where he's, hey, if these reads aren't there, I'm taking off. And it's working very well. And again, he's averaging more than 5 yards to carry. And not only that, he's still not taking the hits that you want to make sure you're protecting your quarterback. And at the same time, it's also still helping the overall team. So it's a good situation. It's a great situation. And whoever brought it up has been working pretty well for him. Again, just keep the Prince healthy. But yeah.
Hey, listen, it's ironic you mentioned the Prince as you bring that tee up, because throughout their stay at England, we were talking about Trevor Lawrence running the ball being an essential element. And also, that's a great dad joke set up. Thank you, Travis. With all that in mind, I would be remiss if we don't talk about this play to close up the Thursday night conversation from the previous week. But it also transitions nicely into the Jaguars facing an offense that's kind of turnover prone in the right situation, except in this case, Foye Oluokun did his part to put points on the board with it. Travis, walk me through the interception and what you saw that you liked so much here.
Man, you already know I love Darius Williams. Like, this guy, man, he makes the break on the ball. He gets the ball out. Foyer's in the right spot. You got Trey Herndon with the block. You got Josh Allen leading the way, and we are in the touchdown dancing. And it's just really, really doggone good coverage. Again, you got Smoot with the pressure on the stunt. And that forces Derek Carr back up in the pocket. It's just, again, it's a great situation. Everyone's kind of showing up. All the names that you kind of want to see. The linebackers have just been playing with their hair on fire. And even though this didn't put Darius Williams on the stat sheet, this is just another play made by that young man who just keeps balling out of his mind. And This is awesome to see.
No, I've been a Darius Williams guy. I've featured him at least once on the Jaguar Report. Bing! The whole piece there, just the blocking downfield. I'm glad you brought that up. Great to see Foye get a score. His first pick six since high school. That's a fun thing. And I'll ask you this: what elements of what you're seeing the Jags defense? Granted, because the Saints ran the ball, I don't necessarily think they ran the ball great as much as they just ran it in a higher volume. Right, 30 times they ran the ball for 112 yards overall, but they only averaged about 3.6 a carry with, a couple longer runs. I think that was more about volume. And, for those that were hoping that the average stayed under 80 yards a game, unfortunately, it's at 80.6 now. I know, I'm sorry. Going into facing Kenny Pickett and Najee Harris up there in Pittsburgh, that number may increase slightly, but 80.6 per game on the ground is awesome. What sort of defensive elements do you hope the Jags maintain heading into Pittsburgh there?
Well, this is going to be an interesting one because they're still playing against the Matt Canada offense, and that's just that offense is so Jekyll and Hyde. It frankly is for the first time over the past 2 weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, they finally started running the outside receivers inside of the hashes. That was normally something that they would avoid doing. And because of that, it's like, well, did they figure something out, or did they just see something in the matchups they were playing against? Because normally it's pretty easy to guard a Pittsburgh Steelers offense because you just know that they're not coming. Those outside guys aren't coming in the hashes. So the corners, they can just take inside leverage and just basically just watch for the stop routes, watch for the comebacks, watch for the back shoulder fades. Those are the main things that Kenny Pickett can throw. He normally kind of struggles at putting those, leading the receivers down the field kind of with those deep balls without underthrowing them or significantly overthrowing them. So from the Jaguars' perspective, hey, I'm hoping they play a lot of cover one and put those corners in trail technique, especially if you get Tyson Campbell back. I'm talking in those serious, passing situations. Maybe even play a little cover two man if you get some third and long scenarios, and just let those front four kind of peel their ears back and go and get the quarterback. These are the things that I'm kind of hoping for from that defense, but it's always going to start with stopping the run early. If they can do that, and the Steelers kind of make it easy to do that, they are literally the worst team in the NFL and on first and second down and gaining more than 5 yards in those two downs combined. So if the Jaguars can make Pittsburgh play the game that they normally play, it actually plays right into the hands of Mike Caldwell and that Jaguars defense to do what they want to do.
I think I saw you retweet something, and forgive me for not remembering the original source, but 4.3 a carry is what I think we saw from the Steelers on that first and second down average that you're talking about. Yeah, not great, Bob.
Not great at all.
I say all that to say, flipping it to the other side, you mentioned Tyson Campbell coming back would be nice. I really want to see Walker Little. TJ Watt scares the bejesus out of me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Pardon my bias. I have his brother on my wall behind me here in studio, so but nonetheless, I'm still pissed they canceled Ultimate Tag. I loved watching that with my daughter and getting the opportunity to introduce her to the Watt brothers that way. So bring it back, Netflix. Step your game up. But all that to be said, listen,
well, that was actually one of my but if you don't mind me, that was actually one of my concerns, because the Jaguars were a top 5 team this season, and as far as leaving their tackles, whether it's Walker Little at the time or whether it's Cam Robinson or Harrison, leaving them on an island, leaving them in isolation, basically against defensive tackles, and that became an issue, obviously, in the Colts game, the first Colts game. That became an issue in the Chiefs game against Chris Jones. I wonder if Press Taylor, if Doug Peterson learned something from that, because that might have been the difference in the game. And I'm wondering if maybe they would treat this a little bit different, because frankly, TJ Watt is a game wrecker. So will he leave them on an island? Will he this game start chipping a little bit more, or maybe running a little bit more 2 tight end sets, 12 personnel, to allow Brendan Strange or Luke Farrell to just chip away at TJ and help his quarterback out?
Well, yeah, you mentioned the name. I was going to use the dad joke to sound even smarter, but yeah, if they opted to chip at TJ Watt, that wouldn't be a very strange game plan at all. Anyways, so the trouble with haters, Travis, they're going to hate. Anyways, no, but yeah, I agree with all the above. It would be interesting to see. And listen, as much as we talk about those moments with Harrison struggling as a rookie, he's doing a damn fine job. If linemen got actual recognition for what they're doing, he would be a Rookie of the Year candidate. But even if they did, it's hard to pick against C.J. Stroud this year. Somebody much to the chagrin of Duval Duval every year, I think they're going to be seeing for many years to come. But with all that in mind, hey man, listen, I 100% agree with the damage that Watt does, and that's to take nothing away from his supporting cast. Like I said, Minkah Fitzpatrick. I'm not going to say he was robbed of his Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie Defensive Player of the Year, I should say. Derwin James is an awesome player. I wasn't mad at him getting it, but Minkah Fitzpatrick was my Defensive Rookie of the Year back in Miami. Granted, I paid a lot more attention to him directly because I was writing for the Dolphins Wire at the time. But listen, I think the Steelers aren't an easy out. And if you make mistakes early, if you let George Pickens beat you the way Tank Dell did over the top a couple times, you could lose this football game on the road.
Oh, absolutely. This is the Mike Tomlin team. Like, let's just start there. They're basically the same thing, and not exactly the same, but you get what I mean. Like, they're like White Mike, which is that's Mike Baberill in Tennessee. They're death, taxes, and 500. Like, this is going to be a disciplined team. They are not going to turn the ball over much. Like the Steelers and the Jaguars are actually tied with turnover differential at +6. Currently both second in the league, which means their defenses get a lot of turnovers. The offense doesn't turn the ball over as much, or at least significantly less than their defenses. And that means you're going to play a team that's going to they're really scrappy. They're not beating you with ball possession. They're not beating you with time of possession, with yardage, etc. They're just simply scrapping this thing together, mucking it up, and trying their best to just punch you in the mouth and win by 3 points. And they don't care if it's by 1, by 3, by 10, doesn't matter. So this is not, to your original point, this is not a gimme game at all. And these are two teams who have really good defenses, and they're going to try to keep you in a low scoring game. So it's going to be real interesting to see who protects the ball the best. And hopefully that ends up being the Jaguars.
Yeah, right. At the end of the day, I'm with that too. Protecting the football is certainly going to be a larger element in this game than perhaps any of the others. I would even possibly include the Saints game, even though that you could argue the game-breaking play there was Foye Oluokun taking care of getting those points on the board. What an effort too to leap into the end zone at the end. That's one of those where I wish I was there at the game because it wasn't at Everbank. It was over there at the Superdome. I wish I would have been there to ask him or hear some questions asked of him about that play. That certainly been an awesome interaction. Well, we're at that mark, Travis. Tell the world what you think.
Well, this is a fun one. We got two good defenses, and I know everyone doesn't think Pittsburgh's defense is good. I think they're crazy, and because we've seen the Jaguars struggle with some solid defensive fronts, whether that's KC, whether that was Indy in the first game, and Pittsburgh is absolutely up there with T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith. They are Pittsburgh's. They're top 10 as far as their front four, as far as PFF rating. Whereas the Jaguars, they're literally the opposite of the Jaguars. Two good defenses in two significantly different ways. The PFF has the Jags D rated at the bottom as a bottom three defense. As far as their pass rush is concerned, but they have the best secondary coverage grade, right? Whereas Pittsburgh has a bad secondary coverage grade, but an incredible pass rush from, again, Highsmith and TJ Watt, and I believe they have that rookie defensive tackle who's been pretty solid. At the end of the day, two good Ds, two different reasons, and the hope is both teams want to keep the low score. I'm probably going Jaguars 25, Steelers 17.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fine take too. By the way, for all the stats you rattle off, one I think that's worth mention is Josh Allen keeping up with TJ Watt in stats for most of the season to this point thus far. Yeah, and it's interesting to see for all the banging that experts, and I'm gonna put that in air quotes, do on the Jags pass rush, such as they are. They don't account for the fact, well, they don't have center backs. How do you think these DBs are getting all the damn interceptions? Quarterback pressure.
They get a lot of, well, they do get a lot of pressures. Yeah, that's the big part. The Jags are really good at pressures, and they were good at pressures last year. It was kind of but they just never get the sacks. And when you play certain teams like a Pat Mahomes or something along those lines, that's when sacks matter more than pressures because those guys work well. They work well when pressured.
Even though they managed to pressure Patrick LeVon Mahomes II to throw a pass to his own lineman when he was under pressure so quickly. I mean, like, and listen, this isn't me trying to cape up and say the Jags have a good pass rush. Let's not get stupid. But bottom three, cool story, bro. I have my feelings about PFF, and I'll leave it at that.
I got you. It can be useful in pointing you in the right direction. That doesn't make it the Bible, or that doesn't make it the rule of thumb, whatever. But it just means that it can, if used in the right way, point you into an accurate opinion.
I'll say it this: when it comes to the church of the Duval, make sure you say it loud enough for the rear pews, my guy. Anyway, Holmes, tell the world where you could be found, my good friend.
Oh man, I can be found on all the socials at Travis D. Holmes, whether that's Facebook, Threads, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, depending on how ancient you are these days. And you can find my writings on bitcatcountry.com. We just posted if you're watching this on Friday, we posted this on Thursday, the press recap for Mike Caldwell and Press Taylor, kind of talking about getting Calvin Ridley the ball, getting him more involved, and kind of what we just discussed earlier, just referencing the different ways that the Jaguars kind of want to run that offense and the effect of Zay Jones not being in the game. So stay tuned for that injury report on Friday, and feel free to hit me up on Twitter. We'll talk and we'll chop it up. I appreciate you.
The injury report. Yeah, that sounds like a bing if I ever heard one. Anyways, of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on the Jaguar Report of SI. Of course, I do my thing as well, writing for the 3-point conversion and covering UCF football with the Black and Gold Banneret. Also, look out for some of my action covering the Orlando Magic season opener this past Wednesday. I was in a hizzy. You may have noticed it was a pre-record this past week for the Student of the Game podcast that I also do as well. Let's see, SOTG Twitter, the SOTG Threads, the SOTG Instagram, Facebook, Student of the Game, all that with the socials. But with all that in mind, many thanks to my good friend, Travis Holmes of Big Cat Country, the champion that he is. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the Student of the Game. But until next time, my friends, an honor, joy, and privilege to do this for you every week. But class dismissed.
Gotta play that theme music. Come on. Like in my Deion Sanders voice, play my theme music. Come on.
I tried to host the show. It just doesn't work.